All
All
right.
right. We are back after a bit of a hiatus this summer. Lots of weddings, vacations. One of those vacations, we got to see a pretty solid movie. Hence the backgrounds. I sincerely hope you are watching this and not just listening to it, but not because of our faces. We have some legendary backgrounds. Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about one of the summer's belters, Oppenheimer, which was released late July. Nolan and I had the opportunity to see it while on vacation at the beach, and yeah, let's leap into it. Where do we want to begin?
I mean, in general, like the reason we picked this movie rather than the litany of other big summer blockbusters is because we already did an episode on Christopher Nolan. So, felt like a logical inclusion that we would just sort of add the next one on. Um, it was a success. The movie made money. We're gonna do a Barbie review, I presume, at some point since the two were released concurrently, and geniuses in the Hollywood marketing departments came up with Barbenheimer, the double feature to get people to go to the theaters, which they did. A lot of people watched both movies. I have not yet seen Barbie. I will, but uh, yeah. As a preface, I guess we can sort of just go through the plot. The plot's pretty straightforward. All things considered for a Christopher Nolan movie. Uh, he's never made a biopic before. He's never made anything that is this real before, based on historic fact.
Yeah, the
Um,
closest that he came was with Dunkirk, and that obviously had a lot of fiction folded into it.
yeah, and that is so much more of a like feeling based immersive war experience
Yes.
than it is anything else because the narrative is basically irrelevant. I mean, similar to this, like, you know that they're going to successfully make atom bombs and nuclear weapons, even though the first hour and a half is dedicated to like, can we even do this? Is it theoretically possible? Um,
Right. Yeah, the movie does not hinge upon the tension of like, I wonder if they figured it out.
yeah, it's more so playing off of the audience's fascination, not only with the subject matter, but how these characters worked together to build the bomb. Obviously, everything centering around Oppenheimer, who's the director of the Los Alamos project or Los Alamos lab. Um, so yeah, the narrative, because Nolan can't just tell a straightforward story, the narrative still splits into pieces. Um, so it spends its time oscillated between three moments in history. One, like the main plot, is based on Oppenheimer, sort of growing up, being interested in physics, and starting the Los Alamos project to outrace Germany to build nuclear weapons. Um, the other two plots are a Senate committee hearing for a guy named Levi Strauss, played by Robert Downey Jr., and a security clearance re-upping. I don't even know what you would call it other than like a security clearance meeting, where
It's
they want
like
to.
yeah, it's like a security clearance review that's essentially it's not even a hearing, but it's more of a review, I guess. But it's treated kind of like a hearing or it basically feels like Oppenheimer's on trial, but
Yeah,
he's not technically on trial. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
So these three plots sort of all happen at the same time, where that main plot of them coming up with the theoretical physics to actually build the bomb obviously culminates in the Trinity test where they detonate the first atomic bomb out in the desert. And then we slowly get the conclusion of the security clearance meeting and the Senate confirmation meeting. Um, and a lot of the plot is focused on characters, so it's not really anything regarding the story. It's more about the way that the characters change over time. So the relationship between Oppenheimer and his wife and his mistress, Oppenheimer and Einstein, Oppenheimer and Strauss, and then Oppenheimer and like all of his subordinates on the actual nuclear project,
Yeah.
which is just this movie has a huge cast of famous actors who are all playing famous physicists and scientists. Um, yeah, I don't know where you want to go from here. I don't really want to just like list out all of the actors and the scientists they play, but um,
No, we can kind of just break it down plot wise by mentioning them when they show up, I guess.
gotcha. Yeah, so it starts with Oppenheimer being like a student, and he's shown to be bad in the lab. So he's not good at actually practical physics. He's very gifted at theoretical physics. Um, he wants to see a lecture by Niels Bohr, played by Kenneth Branagh. So obviously, Cillian Murphy is Oppenheimer. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, so he meets Niels Bohr, who's just another famous scientist. Um, Oppenheimer gets his PhD, and then he meets with a bunch of other famous scientists, and eventually ends up moving to America, where he teaches at Berkeley, California. There's a bunch of plots with him being a communist or like being a lot friends with a lot of communists, and it's kind of unclear if he is, where he's sympathetic to some of their views. And this all comes up later because obviously after World War II, being communist was being an enemy. um, Plays into one of the larger themes of the movie, where sort of diagnosing our America's complicated relationship with its own heroes, in the way that someone like Oppenheimer can save the day by creating a bomb that ends the worst war, and then 5 years later he's an enemy of the state whose security clearance is revoked and his name is dragged through the mud.
Yeah, it definitely shows America as big big good country that does whatever it can because or yeah, whatever it wants because the ends justify the means because we got to beat them Nazis, beat the baddies.
Yeah, and there are a few discussions between some of the scientists about like not only if we can do this, but should we do this? Where there are not that many scientists pushing back because the majority of the ones working at the Los Alamos, New Mexico facilities are most interested in pure scientific progress. And it's not until they actually build the bomb, and then it's immediately like a month later they're bombing Japan, and it's at that point where the scientists go, "Oh shit, we probably should have had some more questions about what we were doing."
Yeah, and they treat sort of the big uh government bureaucrats as just like we're gonna make this happen. We don't really care what you say. You guys are just pawns. We'll ask you questions, but it doesn't really matter what you say. We're gonna do this.
Hmm.
It's kind of how it feels to me, at least. Especially, who is it? Truman. That's the president.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
they don't
pretty
even show Truman until after the bombs have been dropped.
right, right. But his presence is within the movie and the decisions while he's not without actually having him there.
Right. Instead, it's like his secretary of uh, state, I think.
Hmm.
like talks with Oppenheimer and the Matt Damon who plays like a general who's sort of in charge of Oppenheimer and the Los Alamos people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And they're like recommending which Japanese city should be bombed, which is a great scene.
Yeah.
One of the few scenes in the movie that doesn't have music. Pretty much the entire movie has music, like a score just over it, which um, I don't mind at all. I thought the music was still pretty much in the background. Uh, I just know that's sort of a critique some have of Christopher Nolan's movies,
That
um,
there's too much music or not enough,
but the
or
music is too loud that you can't hear what people say.
I don't know what to tell you. Like,
That's a universal derision of Nolan's films. Is that
no, no, I
this?
know. It's just that's like complaining that the roller coaster made sound. Like,
I
yeah,
couldn't.
there was too much rickety sound on this old wooden roller coaster. It kind of like ruined my experience, my exhilaration. Oh, it didn't like scare you because it's made of wood and added to the fear factor of like, holy shit, I'm gonna die. This is made out of wood. Like, just pay attention. It, or watch the movie several times. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe stop looking at your phone, listen to what they're saying. Wait, who's that character again? Put your phone away and just watch the movie.
Mm,
This movie did a great job of giving people the capability of keeping track of characters. I would describe myself as someone who has trouble keeping track of characters throughout convoluted plots. And this one, while having different time or different moments in time, actually makes it like very intelligible. Like it's very easy to process, I would say. Um, Even just watching it like the first time through, like especially the way the characters say each other's names over and over again, they kind of like remind the audience, like, oh yeah, that's this guy or that's this person. And there's a lot of close-ups on their face, so it's kind of difficult to forget who's who. So that's like an added feature. I'm trying to think like what movie to compare that to, but like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy has a convoluted plot and a lot of different characters, and you can
mm.
get kind of like bogged down and like, wait a second, who the hell is this person again? Where are they popping up and why are they doing this?
Yeah, that movie has like a third or a quarter of the characters as this one, and the plot is still more complicated.
Yeah. So I'm saying like this movie, while handling complications and a lot of characters, does it like very well. It makes it easy to digest while not making you feel like an elementary kid.
Yeah, I was a little surprised at how untechnical they got with regards to explaining like the difference between nuclear fission or fusion. Like they never really bog you down with the details of the physics, which is a restraint that I am surprised they took in favor of highlighting characters. Because Christopher Nolan is like infamous for his exposition dumps, and so I was expecting there to be like there's all these scenes where the physicists are together and they're doing stuff, but they like remove most of the scientific or mathematical talk in favor of something streamlined to get what the characters are about. So I
Yeah,
I was expecting them to just be like, "Whoa, you didn't do the paradox math," and just some long equation written on the board where they explain what each variable in the equation is, and so thank God they didn't do any of that.
yeah, especially given his track record of Interstellar, Tenet, even Inception, where there's just like
Primarily those
large,
three, yeah.
large exposition that just it makes sure every T and I is correct for the audience, and like so some professor can't be like, well, actually, yeah, it wouldn't work because of this, and Nolan's like, no, 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 it would because of that. I did see some critiques where people were like, well, I wish they had spent more time actually explaining how the bomb works. And you're like, I don't really know if we needed to know that. The movie isn't called Atomic Bombenheimer. Like it's Oppenheimer.
Yeah, it's
So
based on the guy, not on his work specifically.
yeah, exactly. So I think like you said, the restraint used there um was correct because that would have lost a lot of audience members, I think.
Yeah. So, but I mean, really, the only thing we haven't gone through plot wise that we can just get through here and then sort of dive into more of a review of the movie rather than description is like after all of the like after the bomb is dropped, basically, um, chronologically, but not the way the movie presents it. Oppenheimer is hired by Levi Strauss. Um, I forget which school it is that he works for, but he hires him as like the chair of the physics department. And like the first day that they meet, Einstein is like hanging out by some pond, and Oppenheimer goes up and says something to him, and Einstein like walks away very coldly and
Mm,
passes Strauss, who thinks that Oppenheimer said something to him to make him hate Strauss,
yeah.
which sets up the main conflict of the movie, which is Strauss's resentment of Oppenheimer. And there's another hearing that happens that is shown very briefly over and over again, where Oppenheimer basically um, dismisses all of Strauss's ideas before some sort of Senate committee. Something about like exporting radioisotopes.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the exporting of isotopes because you can basically do that. Like isotopes are exported every day through beer, like through things that are like carbonated and whatnot, I believe was the joke that he makes. Like you can get
right,
isotopes from
right.
like so many different products. It's not really like a secret element or something.
Yeah, and so I mean, ultimately, the point of it is that after the bomb is dropped, Oppenheimer becomes very opposed to nuclear proliferation and instead wants there to be research and wants to work with the Soviet Union, whereas the entire American military machine has basically already taken it out of Oppenheimer and out of the scientists' hands and is pushing for proliferation and violence and leading us down the dark path to the Cold War. But that setup with Strauss leads Strauss to then exert his political influence on um, some arm of the military to eliminate Oppenheimer's security clearance so that he can't work on nuclear anymore and won't be able to make public statements about nuclear energy or nuclear bombs.
Yeah,
And so,
they don't assassinate his character, but they try to assassinate his character by revoking his security clearance and trying to like basically besmirch his reputation therein by suggesting that he is connected to communists and has always had communist leanings.
right,
That's
yeah.
another element to it.
Exactly. And so I mean, all of this stuff is happening in the movie continuously. Like it all sort of plays into the end. Um, but he has people that worked with him both sort of back him up during the security clearance meeting and like lie and say that he's an enemy of the state in a certain way. I guess they don't call him an enemy of the state. They just question whether or not he should have a security clearance because they think that he's unstable or, you know,
They
of
base
questionable morality.
Yeah, they don't paint him as an enemy of the state, but they paint him as like someone who could be an enemy of the state, or there's a
Yeah.
possibility of it, which is another sort of lesson in like narrative adjustment or like writing a narrative or manipulating a narrative rather
Hmm.
is just like even if you just suggest that someone may have something, like just saying may then lends people to be like, oh, so they're communists. They're like, no, I never said they're communists, but they could be bad because of all
Yeah.
these things, and that's what they do. And it's also an unfair situation that they put Oppenheimer, which you later find out was directed by someone.
Right, by Strauss. Yeah.
Exactly.
Strauss basically uses a bunch of other people to gather, like, create a narrative against Oppenheimer to make it seem like he's questionable. Um, so his security clearance is revoked. Like, ultimately, the meetings, it was a kangaroo court from the beginning. Like, the people
Hmm.
overseeing the hearing were always going to vote against Oppenheimer anyway.
Yes.
Um, so you find out that all of the work Oppenheimer was doing to clear his name was for nothing, regardless. Um, and this is all in the background of Strauss trying to be confirmed as the Secretary of Commerce in the future.
Hmm.
And he thinks he has it in the bag. And then at like the last second, they call in a scientist that he knew was going to testify that they assumed didn't like Oppenheimer. And then the guy is just like, yeah, no, I really like Oppenheimer. He's a great man and a great scientist. Fuck this Strauss guy. He's a goddamn liar. He sucks. And then the
Yeah.
Senate is like, oh, all right, yeah, you're not confirmed.
Yeah, and then that guy also reveals Rami Malek reveals that Strauss basically put together this completely stacked um whatever you want to call it hearing
Yeah,
against Oppenheimer from the beginning. And I'm pretty sure Malek, who was he under? He was like a scientist under some guy, but they were trying to like pay Oppenheimer to do something.
they
They
wanted him to sign a petition that explicitly said that they shouldn't use nuclear bombs ever.
That's right. That's right.
And
And he
and
wouldn't.
correct, because that would mean the end of his career.
Yeah, he wouldn't do that, but he does eventually believe in that. So then Malik essentially is he's able to ascertain that he's against using atomic force. So then he's like very honorable man.
Yeah, but I mean Hill also helped. So Malik plays David Hill,
Okay.
and Hill is involved in the research that leads to the bomb anyway.
Right, right.
Um, But yeah, he like Hill could have taken a personal slight because there's that one scene where Oppenheimer like slaps the clipboard with the petition
Hmm.
out of his hand, but Hill never stoops to the lows that Strauss does. He
Right.
knows that he's overworked and that ultimately he believes in the same sort of morality that he does.
Hmm.
Um, and so at the end of the movie, basically, we see that Strauss's like all of Strauss's moves don't work, and that ultimately the goal of the movie is to paint Oppenheimer not in a good light, but in a more objective light, showing what he was going through the whole time, showing his interests and his fears and his regrets, and that Strauss is caught up in some petty vendetta that like continues to circle back around to the fact that he thinks he said something to Einstein all those years ago that made him hate him. And so we keep seeing this scene with him and Einstein, but we don't hear what he says to him. And then finally, that's the very end of the movie, is that Einstein is like, "Oh yes, it's all very good. You did good work," and yada yada. And Oppenheimer's like, "No, I'm pretty sure I ended the world, and I'm depressed." And Einstein is just like, "Oh God, like it just breaks him, and he walks away. And what's his name? The one guy who's with Strauss the entire movie, uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Han Solo,
Yes. Yes.
uh, like says to him, "I bet they weren't even talking about you that day." And that's when you see it, and that I mean, it's a great end of the movie, especially because what's his name? Tom Conti, who plays Einstein,
Hmm.
just delivers this like amazing performance. It's only in 4 scenes of the movie, like a minute of runtime, where he just has some softness about him um, that plays really well off of the like depressed apathy that
Yeah.
Cillian Murphy has come to embody.
Yeah, and you from the outset you aren't sure if they're like rivals because essentially Oppenheimer in history actually like started coming up with theories that were uh discongruent with some of Einstein's theories. So like they weren't they were like somewhat at odds with each other scientifically. Um so you're not like the whole movie you're like really not sure what they said to each other, and then it's just both of them are just extremely concerned with humanity and just like, shit, we're going to kill ourselves. And yeah, that's how the movie ends, just by showing a whole bunch of missiles going off and cutting through clouds and ending humanity as we know it.
Yeah, I again highlighting um, Oppenheimer's greatest fear, and a fear that we all inevitably have. Hence the
Hmm.
Doctor Strangelove background you had going there.
Yeah, I decided to cut it because the movement was was really
Distracting.
just like exploding my brain. So I was trying to replace it, but it doesn't want to replace it with a real picture. It just wants the GIF.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we'll eventually talk about this image behind me in a future episode. Um, but it is relevant to the discussion.
I just looked from his expression, thought thought of thought of American Psycho, the face just over and over again. Yeah. Um no, but going back to RDJ's character Strauss kind of getting caught up on like this one thing that he misinterprets, because he basically just makes the whole movie, like the whole story, about himself, or tries to. And that's like the whole point of his character, is like, if you get so caught up in yourself and you're like, wow, how are people treating me, like I can't believe this person like dislikes me or hates me or is trying to like fuck me over. If you have those thoughts and like build resentment, you're gonna just start ruining other people's careers because of it, and ruining other people's lives, revoking security clearances specifically because of that.
mhm.
And then ultimately, karmically, it comes back and bites you in the ass and keeps you from becoming the what was it, Secretary of Commerce. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, pitting Strauss against Oppenheimer, Oppenheimer is someone who is very much founded in, research and science, and is weighing the world's problems and trying to figure them out. And, Strauss is just some government bureaucrat who just wants to keep getting more power.
Yeah, but there's a scene with Edward Teller, who is another one of the scientists, played by Benny Safdie. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and he says something to him like, "You haven't actually practiced any sort of physics or science in like a decade since you've been doing this. You've just become a bureaucrat."
Right, right.
Uh, and that relationship between Teller and him is explored very fully throughout the movie, where Teller is a fascinating character, played really well by Benny Safdie. Because he's one of the guys that like turns on him in the security clearance meeting, um, and kind of stopped helping him work on the bomb because Teller didn't believe in the bomb. But then later on, it becomes in favor of them. Sort of a guy who was just swinging in the wind politically and went whichever way he felt the wind was blowing.
Yeah, and then becomes Strauss's guy because
Yeah.
he's like, well, Strauss is gonna win, and he's the guy that can pull the strings for me.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, that's the way he does it. And then Emily Blunt, it's just not about him at all. Just completely holds resentment towards him.
Hmm.
Um,
But
some
Oppenheimer doesn't, which to his
Yeah,
credit is,
e-
supposed to show what kind of a person he is.
exactly. The latter quarter of the movie, he's very quiet. He's actually very silent. I don't know that he really even says all that much. It's mostly people talking about him or about what he
Yeah.
did and other things. And there's a lot of Cillian Murphy kind of just sitting and looking off and not meeting people's eyes.
Actually, it's Killian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy is looking off. Uh,
Sorry.
no, I didn't even realize I said that. He's just looking off and not meeting people's eyes. And obviously, like, you can feel the moral weight of everything like on him. And if you can't feel that, then you just missed the movie. And the whole point of like his character and his troubling ideas, because he's grappling with these things. But um, yeah, all the situations with him where he's just really clearly bothered by what he has done and what he's set up. Um, is great because all the other characters are talking with him like, why are you doing this? Like Emily Blunt, his wife, is like, what the hell? Like, why don't you fight back? Why are you just like laying down and taking this? And it's great because it shows his morality without commenting and being like, no, this guy's a hero, right? There's no moral cast of judgment on him, which I think is very, very strong. Something else that I wanted to comment on is I was really curious to see how they would treat the dropping of the bomb, right? In whether they would show like, you know, the after effects, if they would show what happened in Japan. But I felt like they did it justice from Oppenheimer's perspective, right? Because if they had showed exactly what happened in Japan, it would be it'd kind of break the movie from being about Oppenheimer, right? And then it would be more about like the bomb and the after effects. So I'm glad that they didn't, only because it would be non-congruent with Oppenheimer's story and everything. And the way that they did show those effects actually was pretty creative, right? With the like town hall speech that he was giving, and then he basically was having visions of the people in the crowd. The one in particular, he's like stepping over a body, but it's like in ash, and his foot gets stuck in the ashen body. Um, there are like people
Yeah.
crying and huddling with each other and screams. Um, that was obviously a very powerful moment, and really shows a window into his mind and his soul about what he's really grappling with, and the stuff that people probably who just see his words and stuff are just like, oh, this guy's bad, or this guy made the bomb, whatever. Sorry, that was I covered a lot of different things in that.
Yeah. Yeah. The I'm trying to think where you started that thought. Uh,
I just realized
oh, starting with like why they didn't show the bombs. Yeah.
I
I
am not recording this on voice recorder either. So there's that. So we're just going with video.
fuck it, we'll do it live.
Yep.
Yes, I mean it that's the whole crux of the framing of the movie is through the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see their reaction to everything rather than seeing the thing itself. Like there's a huge build up to the Trinity test, but we only see the implosion and the after effect horrific nuclear cloud of the implosion for 10, 15 seconds. It doesn't dwell on that. It's more interested in showing the interest these scientists have or Oppenheimer's reaction to it than the spectacle of it itself.
Yeah, yeah, and it's kind of like finishing a dystopian novel and getting to the end, and you're like, that's it? What the hell? And then you think about it more, and it's understated, um, as opposed to like, you know, zooming in on the bomb and everything. Um, and yeah, everything keeps coming back to Oppenheimer and the scientists and their response to the bomb. It's not the movie is not about the bomb. Primarily, I should say.
No, I mean the implication of what you're left to think about is like how are we going to use this fire that the American Prometheus just gave us?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the answer is we've not used it well, but at least we haven't been like bombing Russia or anything.
Not yet.
But yeah, overall, I thought it was an excellent movie. I mean, the restraint that Christopher Nolan used not to turn it into spectacle is impressive. I was thoroughly entertained. I could see why some people might not be. Um, in general, I would say that it is near perfect in its execution. There are a handful of gripes I have, like just small complaints here or there. Um, there's one, it's really well edited. Like the
Mm-hmm.
pacing is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
There's one bad cut, like 2/3 of the way through the movie.
Is it a fade to black?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like it's
I
his
remember.
wife, it's Emily Blunt is like putting or taking the clothes off the line, and it
Yep.
just cuts to black, it fades
Yep.
to black for no reason, and
Mm-hmm.
then it jumps back into the movie, pretending it wasn't, like it was like a mistake. It was
It
like, well, how did we miss?
it
Did you
really
not just have more music to play?
it really felt like there was supposed to be something in between. Like I don't know if yeah, that slipped by the editor. I doubt it did, and I doubt it slipped by Nolan, but yeah.
It was probably some technical thing where, I mean, if you see the film prints for the IMAX showing, it's like 12 feet in diameter. So it was probably something where they're like, we can't even have, you know,
Yeah.
15
Yeah.
more seconds of film spliced in, so you got to cut it somewhere. And they were like, fuck it, just right here's a good spot. It's
Yeah.
shortly after the bomb goes off.
Right.
No one will notice.
I'm sure there will be some type of release where that's fixed in some way. But um yeah, like my response after seeing it, like I think it was like a half hour after seeing it, like a way too quick response to it, was I was talking with Anna and she was like, "Oh, how was the movie?" And I was like, it was fine. Like I thought it was good. It was a good movie. Um and then like later on that day, I was thinking about it more, and you and I talked a little bit about it. But my like quick take, like after watching it, was there were like so many scenes of people just like sitting around talking, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Because obviously, like it is by no means an action movie, right? You and I both watched um Mission Impossible Fallout last night. Um, Separately. We weren't even together. We just watched it at the same night. And yeah, like even though it is a bunch of people in suits around talking about things, it's you're very interested in it. Like they treat it in such a way that the ramifications are obviously really big, but then also trying to figure out how the rest of the movie is going to unfold. It's I wouldn't say it's at a breakneck speed, but the editing, especially in the last quarter, like it is climactic despite it not building up to another bomb dropping. Um, yeah, it's still pretty fast paced, um, and they're able to. I'm still not really sure how he is able to do this, but he's able to make people talking about something that's actually historical and factual pretty interesting. Obviously, people will critique here and there. Oh well, this wasn't actually this, or he never actually did that, or whatnot. I'm sure there are some liberties that were taken, um, but not to the point of a lot of biopics. That actually brings up a good point that I wanted to make on the topic of biopics, is that I'm not the biggest fan of biopics. So when I found out that Christopher Nolan was coming out with one, I was very skeptical. I know you were too. Of
Oh, the trailer made the movie look awful.
Yeah, of the state that he's in as well. Whether or not he's in the decline, and thank God he's definitely not in decline. But biopics, large by and large, for me, they boil down to two categories. One is they're extremely sensationalized and not factual at all, where you're like, all right, that definitely didn't happen that way. Like this is simply just dramatic, and you're trying to make it into something that it wasn't. Or they are like so caught up in the details and bogged down where you can't keep track of the story, or you don't care about the characters because it's just so many people involved, so many facts, and it's like almost reading a textbook, like a really really dry textbook, and you're like, what the hell? Like I would rather read a textbook at this point. Like I don't want to watch this on screen. So it's usually one of two things, and this was neither. At times it was a lot of people talking, like I said, but I found myself like actually caught up with what they're saying and like paying attention to what they're saying. Where um, in other biopics or other moments in film, I will just tune it out and just be like, I wasn't listening because I couldn't listen anymore.
Yeah, I mean, biopics tend to be some of the least interesting movies made, where I would say only a handful of directors I like have made successful ones. Martin Scorsese comes to mind for making numerous biopics. Um,
Silence is pretty good.
Raging Bull, Silence, Goodfellas, Wolf of Wall Street. Those are all biopics.
Yeah,
They just
yeah.
don't feel like it because they emphasize something else. And I remarked to you that this movie had a lot of moments that felt like a Scorsese movie. Like a
Yeah.
lot of the same camera work and editing styles to keep things constantly moving. Lots of pans, lots of zooms, lots of huge ensemble crowds with the camera following a character through, and that all helps with the long run time, something that Scorsese's never had trouble doing. Um,
Yeah, it does. It it does have fewer hallmarks of a Nolan movie than some of his other ones, which I think actually is a service to the movie. But you're right, like it does feel like more of a Scorsese movie in a lot of ways than it feels like it could have been done by a different director than Nolan, other than the narrative part and
um,
the treatment of character in a lot of ways. Like
I
the
would
stuff,
say visually speaking, that's sort of true, but it still has a lot of the hallmarks of his other work.
the psychological aspect where it's showing stuff that's directly happening in his head is absolutely Nolan, like
Yeah,
spot
that's
on.
cut straight from Memento, Insomnia,
Yeah,
and Batman Begins. Like the
exactly.
cut of the bats or Insomnia, the cut of the camera's spinning, and
Yeah.
Memento, the cut, and yeah,
But like
all of the like
showing,
particles and stuff, the stuff with like string theory.
well, that and also like Florence Pugh as well. When his wife is sitting in on the hearing or whatever, and she is seeing her like on Oppenheimer, but it's like from Oppenheimer's perspective of what she's probably imagining
Yeah,
of
but
him
then
being
they
that woman.
also they like cut to the other side, and it's as if it's from Rob, the attorney that's like, arguing he shouldn't have the security clearance. Like he sees it too,
Yeah, yeah,
almost as if to say that Emily Blunt is ashamed of it, whereas Jason Clarke sees it as like this disgusting pervert,
yeah.
this commie bastard shouldn't have no. And yet, yeah, that I assumed that some people would be upset with that scene for whatever reason, because nudity always upsets somebody. Um, But in general, I thought that scene was like the perfect inclusion because it shows three different characters in the same scene's perspective on this moment. Where for Oppenheimer, it seems like that's always going through his head. Like while he's constantly thinking about theoretical physics, he's also like, sex. Yes, I could be thinking about that. But for his wife, it's like this shameful thing, and then for the attorney, it's screw this guy. He's a dangerous communist pervert.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And yeah, I can definitely see people I can definitely see people getting upset by that scene, but it's so jarring at the time that it's perfect to include there because it jars you out of just like men sitting around a table talking and smoking, and you're like, holy shit, what is going on here? And obviously Florence Pugh is great in it. She's great in everything that I've seen her in.
Yeah.
Another understated performance in a lot of ways.
Oh, I mean, all the actors put in a great performance in this movie. Like the only exceptions really to where I saw the actor and not the character would have been Josh Peck and Jack Quaid, where it was like, oh, right, Josh Peck helped build the bomb, right? Yes, that's. Whereas like a lot
Yeah.
of these other people, like the attention to detail, not only that the actors took in portraying them, but the costuming and makeup
Yes.
departments did is flawless. Like that's why I said Benny Safdie was amazing because he looks just like Edward Teller.
Yeah, his
Um,
face, did they change like did they actually fatten up his face, or does he look
They
that way?
definitely I think had CGI.
Okay, because like I know he kind of looks that way, and I wasn't sure if something happened to him, but I was like, that's either makeup or CG
He
because he look
probably put on some weight too,
right
for
for the role.
either for the movie or in general. Um, but like Jason Clarke was excellent as Roger Robb.
Yeah,
And he looked like him. Most of the scientists look like Josh Hartnett was really good for
yeah.
both being like kind of a hard ass, but also sympathetic
Josh
or
Hartnett was
empathetic.
really good.
And he looks just like Lawrence. The guy that plays Fuchs looks just like Fuchs. Fermi looked just like Fermi. Um,
Fermi's character was great when the bomb is dropping, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to sit in here and just look at it through this.
mhm.
I gotta see this shit for my own eyes."
Yeah, Matthew Modine looked just like the guy. I mean, Gary Oldman was a weird. That part with Truman was a little odd, but it was still a great scene.
That was Gary Oldman.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, what?
Gary Oldman was Truman.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Uh, I was gonna say another gripe I had with this. There were two other complaints I had. Um, they were really minor things compared to everything else that I would gush about. Like I think it's really well written, obviously super well edited. The cinematography is consistent. I wouldn't say it's revelatory or magnificent or anything, but it always works. Um, the two parts. There's the part where at the beginning where Florence Pugh and Oppenheimer are having sex and she pulls out the Agavita or whatever and she's like, "Read me this line in Sanskrit." And he's like, "Oh, I am destroyer of become I'm become death." And I was like, "Ah, oh, why would you?"
Yeah, that
Like
being
literally turning the line into a meme in a movie that is otherwise completely serious just seemed like a strange decision.
it was like they couldn't figure out how to introduce that line before. So they're like, let's cram this in here while he's cramming it in this woman. And like it's also weird too because he delivers the line and is like, I'm gonna destroy the world and also probably gonna destroy your life. Like I have that power. Yeah. There's
I
a
guess
lot.
so.
There's a lot happening in there with power dynamics, sex, and the dropping of bombs and the Agavita. But putting that in there was weird. Yeah, I agree.
The only other part I did not like is at the end of the movie. What's his name? Alden Ehrenreich.
Huh?
Alden Caleb Ehrenreich.
All right, I'm
The
just
guy
gonna
that
have.
plays Han Solo.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thanks.
Han Solo is Iron Man's aide in the movie. And he keeps telling, they're having all these back and forths. And at some point, Iron Man is not confirmed to be a cabinet member. And Han Solo is like, "Guess who one of the people was who voted against you? John F. Kennedy." And then they like look at everybody just stares right at the camera, like, "Do you remember him?" And it's like, why are you like pointing this out? Like, just in case you didn't know, JFK was on the right side of history.
Oh, it felt more like they were like building to a conspiracy.
Oh God.
That was more the way I interpreted it. Like wink wink. Yeah, we all know who really got Kennedy. That's what it felt like to me.
Oh, that's actually a good point. I do know Christopher Nolan's a big fan of JFK. Speaking of biopics that stretch the truth, that Oliver Stone JFK movie. Actually,
No, that
very
was
similar movie to this one
very
in a
true to
lot of
history.
ways.
Kevin Costner is on the right side of history. No magic bullets here.
So yeah, we haven't really discussed the themes of the movie that in depth, but I think it covers a ton of ground and it covers all of it pretty well.
Hmm.
Um, it doesn't all necessarily connect into one idea. Like there's not one universal idea,
I
but I
think
think
that's
that
actually a strength.
oh, exactly, yeah. because it highlights the complication of the subject matter and the interconnected lives that these people led.
And
Um,
also that a human being, as complicated as Oppenheimer, is not just one theme. Like
yeah,
like
exactly.
for anyone to be like, oh, it didn't have like one set like keystone that we can like build it on. Like, well, that's not what a human being is. Human beings are very complicated. They are multifaceted. At any moment in time, they could respond differently because of whatever. Um, yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Sorry, I
But
kind of cut
yeah,
you off thematically.
no, no, that's fine. I mean that, yeah, it discusses a lot of themes. I mean, the role of history, the spitefulness of man, sort of that same idea that the Prestige talks about of man's reach exceeding his grasp,
Hmm.
the complication between technology and humanity, loss of humanity, duty to your family, duty to your country. Um, all this stuff is blended really well. And I mean, Killian Murphy is able to embody the complication of this constantly while still being a character that you can look at and feel something towards, whether it's pity or admiration or occasionally resentment, because sometimes he's just a bastard and he
Hmm.
just comes across as an egotist, and you're like, all right, Oppenheimer. But yeah, I guess the last thing I kind of want to talk about is what this movie means for Christopher Nolan, or at least in the way that I view his career so far. Um, because obviously it's very different than any of his other stuff. You mentioned Dunkirk being more similar just because that's rooted in history, um,
Oh,
which is
I
funny
was
that,
saying that's like the closest,
yeah,
visually and like story wise, I guess.
mm, I would say they're like inverses of each other
Yeah.
because Dunkirk is totally rooted in historical fact that takes a lot of fictitious liberties in order to be sensational, whereas this is um, a subjective view of his historic fact that tries to take as few liberties as possible and removes sensationalism from the narrative to get directly at emotion, which I think is something Dunkirk ultimately lacks, is true characters who you feel something towards. Possibly because Harry Styles is not a good leading man. Um,
Yeah.
I can't see the top of those words.
Ah, damn.
Yeah, I just see world, eh?
Well, I think it's why didn't you tell the world?
Oh, why didn't you sing to tell us about? Eh?
Yes. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Um,
Somehow it got backwards. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
no, you're good. Uh, yeah, I am excited because I felt that Tenet was Nolan moving in the wrong direction. So even though I really liked that movie, it felt like he was sort of treading water rather than evolving.
Hmm.
And I would argue the same is true for Dunkirk because it highlighted more of his flaws as a filmmaker and a storyteller than it showed his strengths. Because I already knew he was able to do something that, in a way, lacked a certain style but was still very cinematic in scope. Um, where Dunkirk is spectacle but not necessarily entertainment. So it's thrilling but not totally engaging. It's like action without action in a way. Like there are set pieces, but and they're nail biting, but it's nothing like that Mission Impossible movie we just watched. Like there's no part of it where you're like, oh, is Tom Cruise gonna be able to climb the whole building? There's nothing like that in Dunkirk. So I certainly think this is one of Nolan's better films. Um, Definitely not his best, but it feels
No.
like he got closer to he did something he hadn't done before, which was some really immaculate character work. Um,
I would probably place this top 6, maybe top 5. Maybe top 5. Which is quite an achievement given his track record. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's probably fighting for the 4 spot for me. 4, possibly 3. I
I
don't
know.
think I'll rewatch this with the consistency I do some of the other ones. So like I think in a lot of ways it's better than Inception and Batman Begins.
Yeah, I
But
was going
those
to say
like
I remember you saying that you thought it was better than Inception. Um which I would probably agree with.
but like I watched Batman Begins again this week. Like that
Yeah.
movie's literally infinitely rewatchable. Inception, infinitely rewatchable. This
Yeah.
movie is not going to be infinitely
Yeah.
rewatchable.
Yeah. And that brings up a great point that like rewatchability definitely is a small category for a movie, but it's not. I wouldn't say rewatchability is like a category for how great a movie is. It's more
No.
like how much like for our favorites list, right, that we are going to release this year. That would be a category for favorites, but it wouldn't be for how great a movie is,
Mm.
which I think a lot of people get bogged down in of like, oh, well, I can't watch that movie again, so it's only like this good. Um which is like an idea also that I find myself having to break out of as well. Of like, well, I wouldn't watch that movie that often, but it's a really good movie.
Yeah, yeah. I mean we watched Jaws last week.
At the beach.
Probably like the 8th or ninth time I've seen the movie. I finished up work one day this week and came out, and Jaws was on, so I watched the last 30 minutes of it again.
Oh my god.
Because it's just a movie where I'm awestruck. It's just perfectly directed. Like it's
Yeah.
perfectly directed, shot, edited, and acted. Pretty much through and through. But yeah, I don't want to get too distracted from what we're talking about here and go into talking about Jaws. Uh, Unfortunately, there's no similarities between Oppenheimer and Jaws. But yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to say. I think I've gushed
Um
over this movie enough.
no, we mentioned Prometheus and sort of the Promethean ethic a number of times. I mean that is technically the book that it's based off of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great title, accurate title. The
Yeah,
man
and
who gave us a sword of fire, both literally and figuratively.
yeah, and I think that myth of Prometheus gets at the heart of a lot of Christopher Nolan's movies as well, which is this double-edged sword of you having all this time, or you having this strength, or you having this character trait of yourself, which can either help you out and help those around you out, or it can just lead to you self-destructing and destroying those around you. So I really liked that Christopher Nolan took on the mantle of this movie and was able to weave his own uh use his own way of storytelling to bring that about for everyone else, because he is, I would say, unrivaled in displaying that for people. Like he's unrivaled in bringing that to the cinematic screen. Just like man's difficulty with his gifts.
Yeah, yeah. Not only the dangers of the obsessive, unyielding mind, but our ability to create what destroys us,
Exactly. Exactly.
both technologically and of our own interpersonal relationships,
Yep.
which both happen to. I mean, Oppenheimer wasn't like killed by a nuclear bomb, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that was the other thing I wanted to mention before was how not just how well the actors emote or portray a character or anything, but where a lot of these actors are in their career, that they would all show up here, um, and sort of play together well as an ensemble. With the biggest surprise being honestly Robert Downey Jr.
Yes, I was just gonna say that.
Because
Like
like Matt Damon,
Matt
that could have been
Damon,
anybody.
exactly. I was
That
gonna
could have
say
been
like Matt Damon being there. He was in Interstellar,
it's just
so
Matt Damon.
you
He's way
gotta
better in Interstellar.
you gotta throw him in. Emily Blunt is at like the top of her career
Yeah, she was really good.
right
The
now.
only unrealistic part of her portrayal is that Kitty Oppenheimer was actually rather hideous. Um,
I mean, that's also true for a lot of the actors in like biopics though.
in
'Cause
general, a lot of the I'm not like if you go to the Wikipedia page for Oppenheimer and just look at the
I
character,
have. I
like
have.
they're so similar. Look, I mean
No,
the
no,
Benny
no.
Safdie one is disturbing how well they got that one, but
No, no, but I'm saying in biopics, like the actors that are chosen for like a role are like sensational, like Ken doll or Barbie versions of the character they're playing,
yes,
typically.
yes,
I mean, The Wolf of Wall Street, for instance, like that. Whatever his
yeah.
name is, yeah, does not look like Leonardo DiCaprio, obviously.
Jordan Belfort,
Yeah,
no, they're not similar looking.
he's a very scary lizard man. Uh,
I will say this movie is going to be nominated for an unending amount of awards
mhm.
come Oscar season. Killian Murphy will
I
100% be nominated, and Downey Jr. will 100% be nominated.
Yeah, I think Killian Murphy will win,
Oh, I
probably.
don't. I don't
Who
think he'll win.
who's gonna beat him?
Somebody in some other stupid stuffy drama that comes out at the end of the year.
Gotcha. The
I don't know.
Oscar bait.
I don't. I haven't looked too far ahead at
Some Argo movie.
big. This is the Argo of the year, just
It
not
just
a
wasn't
bad
released in
movie.
October.
Right. I think Downey Jr. will probably win for supporting actor because they've been waiting for a good time to, um,
Get him an award.
yeah, throw one his way. Because I don't think he's actually won one before.
I don't think he
Uh,
has.
I know he's definitely won Golden Globe. I think he was nominated for an Oscar for Chaplin, but didn't win. Um, I think he was also nominated for Tropic Thunder, which he also didn't win. Which, to be fair, do you know who he lost to?
No.
Heath Ledger. So,
Okay.
there's a connection there, but like as great as he is in that movie, you can't beat Why So Serious.
Yeah.
Just not really fair.
He didn't commit to the role enough to die in
No, he was
Tropic
on the
Thunder.
opposite end of his career. He had just gotten through the I almost died from drugs stage of his
Right.
life.
Right.
He beat that and, you know. But yeah, it's just impressive for him to have played goddamn Iron Man for 15 years and then he comes into this movie and is like not charismatic. Like he's a very
Yeah.
straightforward sort of traditional 50s man,
Hmm.
who's spiteful and vengeful.
And
There's still a
he's
bit of that charisma in there. Like it's hard for Downey Jr. to turn that off entirely, but
Well, it's also great with his character because he like you're at the beginning of the movie, you're like, who the hell is this guy? He's not really in a lot of the movie and he's saying some things like clearly he's kind of important, but then he doesn't really say much because obviously the beginning of the movie is more about Oppenheimer. And
right.
then like towards the end, you're like, oh wow, Strauss is a fucking monster. Jesus. Yeah.
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 Maybe Cillian Murphy will win. We'll see. I mean, I won't watch the Oscars either way, but it'd be nice for Nolan to win Best Director, which I know he won't because
They
they just
treat
don't
they
want to
treat
give
him
him.
like a meme. I think it's probably because he doesn't do one for me, one for you. He's
He
just
does all for me, none for
yeah,
you.
yeah, he just
No,
does it.
he did the one for me, one for you for a long time. Memento was his, then he had to do Insomnia. Batman Begins was one for you, Prestige is one for me, Dark Knight one for you, Inception, one for me. Interstellar, one for me. Rises, one for you. Dunkirk, one for me.
I
Tenet, one for me.
I
Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer actually feels like a one for you. This
I
feels like the
guess, yeah.
studio movie.
I guess.
Hence the huge cast.
Right.
Uh, it's just, it doesn't feel like a movie that's promoting Hollywood or a Hollywood agenda beyond the fact that it is anti-McCarthy and anti-communism, like almost a little too pro-communism.
The movie?
Yeah,
Yeah, it is a bit communistic.
kind of hard not to when the communists were not the villains back then, and it was actually just the pseudo-fascist American regime. But
Mhm.
um, enough about that commie gobbledygook. I have nothing more to say.
Nah, we're good. See you next time. Don't blow up the world.
Yeehaw.